Okay, in this video we are going to talk about narrative perspective, which is kind of one of those easy things that gets a little bit confusing because there's a lot to it. We have first person, second person, and third person. The third person is split into three groups: objective, limited, omniscient, and omniscient. And although those words are pretty big words, what they mean is not too hard to catch a hold of. So let's start with the easy ones. First person. If you're telling a story in third person, you or the main character are using the word I. The character is in the story and they're telling the story from their point of view. So somebody look at the word banks that you guys have and tell me nouns and pronouns that you are likely to hear in a first person story. They. Could be. If the main character is saying that other people are doing something, they're going to talk about the theys in their story that's not them. I is a big one. That's how you can tell the character is living inside the story and talking to you from inside the story. We.
Mine.
Me. One more. Is that? My. A lot of these pronouns, these are all pronouns, right?
Yeah.
Or possessive pronouns. They are standing for a main character who is living inside the story and telling you the story as they know it. That character, if that character is me, if I'm the I in this story, I don't know what any of you are thinking. I only know what I see you doing and what I hear you saying. So in a first person point of view, you're only going to get the point of view of the one main character, and you're going to get what that character thinks about the rest of the story. Second person, it's a little weird. You are telling the story from the perspective of you. That is someone else telling the story from your perspective. And I thought of two examples of this, only one of which I shared in class. The first one, when you read a Choose Your Own Adventure book. And that's an older series where you get to the end of the page, and at the end of the page it gives you a choice. You pick one, and if the first choice says, go to page 46. And the other option, go to page 93. You go to page 93 or page 46, and it just determines what happens in the story. So you can actually change the plot of the story based on which choice you make and which page you go to. Those stories are mostly written from the perspective that sounds like this. You walk into the maze. The atmosphere is heavy with tension and fear. The walls are dripping with moisture. You look to the left. The tunnel is lit up with green glowing light. You look to the right, and it's pitch black. Which way do you go? And at the bottom of the page, it'll give you one page number for left and one page number for right. So that is another author telling it from your point of view. And the other one that I like to think of, you guys ever played a game called Dungeons and Dragons?
No.
Most people your age haven't, but a lot of people have. How about this one? Have you ever seen The Big Bang Theory when they're playing Dungeons and Dragons? I thought most of the hands would go up. The person in charge of the game Dungeons and Dragons is telling a story where the other people are playing characters. When the person who's in charge, called the Dungeon Master, tells the story, they say, you are confronted by a gargoyle. I never played. I don't know what things they say, but that sounds like something they would say. What do you do? That is a second person storyteller saying these are the things that are happening to you right now. Question?
Isn't it like second person like the author that grabs you and puts it inside the story?
Yeah, you're kind of like the author's puppet. You are doing this. You are doing that. Kind of like the author or the narrator is the puppet and walking you through it. So second person is focused on you. Third person is told by someone who is not in the story, a narrator. When you read, some books are written like this. Most of us in this class, we write in first person because it's easy to picture the story in our perspective. It's harder to go outside of your own perspective. And that's what third person is. What are some of those pronouns that we hear in third person?
Us.
I think us might go up here because us means the person who is in perspective and everybody else. Now that doesn't mean you couldn't hear us in a third person story. It means it's more likely to go in first person. They. The author, or the, I keep saying author, the narrator is not inside the story, so that narrator is having to use pronouns to talk about other people.
She.
Nice volume so I can hear you from the back of the room.
Them. He. Her. Names.
Yeah, you would use characters' names. That's not a pronoun, but we'll add it. That's a good one. One more.
There.
Yeah. Possessive pronoun. Now, those are the pronouns that you're likely to hear. Let's talk about the perspectives. The first one is objective. This means the narrator is telling the story as it happens. They don't have any special clues into anything that's happened. They can't think or hear people's thoughts. The objective is just the third person telling of a story. There's no special view. Just as it happens. Spot the dog stories are all the time third person objective. Spot the dog walk down the street. Spot the dog sniff the fire hydrant. You know when I know what Spot the dog does next. But in this first person objective, the narrator doesn't know anything special. It's not the narrator doesn't live inside Spot the dog's head. The narrator doesn't know what Spot the dog's owner's thinking or what the cat that's hiding under the bush is thinking. They just know there's a cat under the bush, Spot the dog is there, they're walking around the street, just knows what's happening. Third person, limited, omniscient. Omniscient means all-knowing. What happens in a limited, omniscient story is that the author, the narrator, knows the inside workings of one character. The thoughts and feelings of one character. Best example I can think of for this one, Holes. When we think the movie Holes is told in first person because you are looking at Stanley telling you the story. When you think the book Holes, the narrator who is Stanley is Stanley telling you the story, or is someone seem like they're kind of watching Stanley through a fishbowl?
Fishbowl.
Yeah, they're kind of watching what Stanley's going on. Do they know what's happening in X-Ray's head?
No.
Do they know what's happening in Mr. Sir's head? Do they know what's happening in Mom's head? Do they know what's happening in Stanley's head?
Yes.
Yes. They know how Stanley feels. They know how Stanley's muscles feel. And they're not just making assumptions or inferences. They're saying, we know how Stanley feels. His muscles burn. Not his muscles are sore. His muscles burn. We know how Stanley feels sorry for Zero. We know a lot about Stanley. But even Zero, one of the other main characters we know a lot about, we only know what Stanley knows, right? Until Zero says, yeah, I'm the one that stole the shoes, we didn't see inside his head. We always knew from the first pages of the book that Stanley was accused of stealing the shoes, and Stanley did not steal the shoes, or at least he said he didn't. But not very many people could figure it out until the end when Zero flat said, yeah, it was me. Yeah, in the movie, Stanley's voice is the narrator. Nice catch. So that it truly is first person, right? In third person, omniscient, that means the narrator knows everything. I had a really hard time coming up with an example for this one, and in fact, I still couldn't do it. Third person omniscient is not one you see very often because there's no mystery if the narrator knows what's happening in every character's brain. If I knew what every character in this classroom, all 23 of us, was thinking right now, number one, I'd probably go crazy. Number two, there's no mystery. And in most plots, if we're telling a story, they count on you not knowing something, right? They want you to have to find something out as it goes. Even if it's not a mystery story, they want you to find things out as it happens. And in third person omniscient, the narrator knows everything.
I read books where we know what's going on, but the character don't know yet.
Nice catch. If you are reading a book where you as the reader know what's happening because the narrator told you, but the characters in the book have no clue what's going on yet, and you know and they're still trying to figure it out, do you think it's very likely that is a third person omniscient point of view?
Yes.
Yes. Because if the characters don't know and you do, that means the narrator does, and the narrator told you. Nice catch. Are there any questions, not statements, about narrative perspective? No? All right. Good luck.